And now for the rock and roll portion of today's event. Not really. So I'm Dan Smalls, and I'm a professional gambler. Well, not really. I gamble for your enjoyment. I bet that on any day, X number of you will pay X dollars to see a certain act in a certain venue. And somehow I'm right about 80% of the time, which to me is absolutely amazing. A little nervous, I pushed that twice. People think about my job and they think it's this super sexy thing where I spend all my time gallivanting around with headline acts, hanging out backstage, having fun. Despite what you see back here, nothing could be further from the truth. Let me tell you a little bit about my job. This is Bill Graham. Bill Graham's the legendary impresario, the guy who wrote the book on concert promotion. He's the guy behind the Fillmore's East and West, Winterland in San Francisco, The Last Waltz, Live Aid, Grateful Dead. He tells a story about what it's like to be a concert promoter. Imagine you're a parent and one of your kids moved away and another one's in college for the first time, and it's Thanksgiving Day and they're finally all back at your house under one roof. You couldn't be more proud. You're beaming, waiting for that beautiful 2 o'clock hour to roll around with this table full of amazing food, and you've come to that moment. Excuse yourself for a second and step outside. Reach in your pocket, pull out that big fat Breaking Bad wad of cash you made at the show the night before, and light it on fire and watch it burn away to charred black dust. Now go back inside. Son, tell me about your psychology exam. Please pass the cranberry sauce. Like nothing ever happened. Now you know what it's like to be a concert promoter. What I do is not without risk. It's an amazing game, but it's more than that. And I'm not motivated by the money. I'm motivated by this one moment that I get to experience at almost every show. It's that moment when the headline act steps on stage and is greeted by adoring fans. And I always try to be there to watch this happen. Whether there's 10 tickets sold, 100, 10,000, whether I made money or lost, people are there to connect with their idols. And that connection is what motivates us. When you're focused on money first, the artist experience, the fan experience, they suffer. So why has Dan Smalls Presents made a name for itself in the region? Because we try to make that artist and fan experience the best it can be anywhere. You don't have to work for the big boys in a big city to establish your brand and how you do things. You can create a scene anywhere by doing good and really hard work, and you focus on what really matters. And for us, that's the artist and the fan. For instance, when X-Ambassadors went out and sold millions of records on a single, came back to Ithaca, we got the mayor to call it X-Ambassadors Day. A little something extra that surprised them. Or perhaps this guy who won tickets to 27 shows in June. I can't imagine that you understand what it takes to put this event together or a show. But I'm going to tell you, a show, say over at the Stanley Theater in town, starts at 8 o'clock at night, doesn't start when the doors open at 7. It starts around 6 o'clock in the morning. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, all-day beverages, listening parties, sound systems, go shopping for more food for the bus, all kinds of loading in of gear, equipment. It's a non-stop day. When the doors open at 7 o'clock, you'll probably find me in the box office pacing around back and forth, hoping the last-minute sales are going to cover the cost of the show. And then the work really starts. I step back in the box office, I settle the accounting of the show with the venue. Then I go backstage and settle the show with the artist. You guys are watching the show, and we're working the hardest at that point. Then, the same crew returns. Well, if I'm lucky, I should say. I get to watch a couple songs from the side of the stage. The same crew comes back, breaks everything down, loads it in a truck, goes to sleep on the bus on the way to the next city. Of course, all that food I talked about, breakfast, lunch, dinner, buying them stuff, sending runners out to get more food, it's never enough. They ask for one more meal right before they get on that bus. You know, sometimes I feel more like a caterer than a guy putting on shows. So where did it start? Let's go back to the beginning. When I started at Cornell University in 1988, one of my first nights I stumbled into a fraternity party and wound up meeting a band called Blues Traveler. Fresh out of Princeton High School, playing some shows around New York City. Next thing you know, we make friends. The jam band scene started to take off. I started booking them at other fraternities and places around campus. And I was lucky enough to do my first real theater show in 1990 at Cornell in Bailey Hall. And in those days, you could book an act on a flat deal. You pay this flat deal for sound, you pay a little bit to advertise. We were lucky enough to sell 1,300 tickets at $10. I was left with $7,000 or $8,000 after that first show. And I figured, why not be a nice kid? You know, my parents worked really hard. They're sending me to this expensive college. Of course, I'm not going to take it all, but I take $5,000 in cash the next morning. And I go up to the bursar's office and I say, I'd like to pay down my tuition, please. And I'm summarily evicted. Where'd you get that cash? Get out of here. You can't have this. I realized I know very little about business at that point in my life, right? Of course, I was the valedictorian in my high school, 4.0 average. I started in engineering. End of semester 1.7. So engineering wasn't working. It made it pretty simple. I don't know about business, so hello, business management, you know? Changed my major right there. I made a very good choice next, which was to work for a guy downtown that had the Haunt nightclub. And in those days, all kinds of crazy acts were playing this venue. And small clubs like that are where you really learn how the business works. So in 1990, we were able to book this little band called Pearl Jam for $250. Look at that ticket price, $5. Before they fought with Ticketmaster, they still kept their fees low, right? No. 20 people came to this show, maybe 30. Today, like 600 say they've been there. But it was amazing that we had to stop the show. We had to stop the show and call our friends. Oh my God, this band is amazing. Eddie Vedder was keeping his pants on with duct tape, but it was amazing. In that era, this band played all the Seattle bands, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Smashing Pumpkins. You don't know who they were, but they were playing the Haunt. But I got my musical education there. The owner of the club was booking all the best blues and reggae acts in the world. And I learned more about music from him than anyone else. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Albert Collins, Buddy Guy, Burning Spear, they all played this little tiny club in upstate New York. It was amazing. Even this guy, from right here in Utica, when he was 12 years old, played his first show, opening for Buddy Guy. So I'm having a great time, right? I'm running a nightclub, everything's good. I'm 23, 24 years old. I know more than everybody, right? I gotta go. New York City, baby. I'm gonna Frank Sinatra my way right to the place, right? So I'm looking at this job at a record label, and I think it's gonna be great. And the more I see in the first few days, it's all about bean counting. How many albums can we ship? Smalls, how much can we do? Blah, blah, blah. I was always about the music. I'm always about the artist, and this wasn't gonna work. So it was a short-lived stint in New York City, and eventually I wound up working in Boston for another concert promoter, the secondary or smaller promoter in that town called Great Northeast Productions. We did probably 80 to 100 shows a year with bands like Lyle Lovett and Joan Baez and ones on the way up as well. But what really made a name for ourselves was we were the producer of the first 6 camping festivals for this band Phish. First Phish show at the Haunt in my tenure, 3 people. Last one over 100,000. Pretty amazing to watch that happen over a very short period of time. We were the first North American concert producers that did festivals. Festivals were happening in Europe, but we were the first ones to do it here, long before Bonnaroo and Coachella and all the things you hear about now. As my boss got comfortable with making all this money on one festival, every time I'd bring him another show, it was a little too risky. And I knew that my time as a talent buyer was basically numbered. And when you talk to agents, hey, we're gonna do this show, and then your boss nixes everyone, you're not looking very good as a talent buyer, right? But at the same time, there was something bigger happening in the industry. There was a consolidation and corporatization happening. In the same way that a Wall Street dude who rolled up all the radio stations into Clear Channel had done that. He's now out buying up all the major urban concert promoters. The guy bigger than us in Boston, Delsner Slater, New York, even Bill Graham Presents after Bill passed. And now we know that as Live Nation. It didn't start that way, but you've all heard about them. Anywhere you go, you're giving them your money, right? They own Ticketmaster, et cetera. Agents, when this happened, were scared to sell to the secondary promoters. It was a monopoly, right? So we were in trouble. Our future was extremely uncertain. So for me, I couldn't stick around anymore. As anything in the music industry, you go from one job to the next. My next gig was a short-term thing down helping in the Catskills, right near where I grew up in Monticello, at Bethelwood Center for the Arts. It wasn't called that at the time, but I did a summer job there and we helped do some shows. And when that came to an end, my family called. So I helped run the family plumbing, heating, and air conditioning business for a couple of years. And it was great. The money was great. I'm in the Catskills. That's the problem, though. The Catskills weren't what they once were, right? So if I was motivated by money, I might have stayed. But I couldn't do it. The Dirty Dancing Catskills were no more. I'm 30 years old. There's no Jennifer Grey dancing across a bridge to hang out with me, right? So I traveled a lot on the weekends and wasn't really sure what to do next. But eventually, like Robin Williams so famously said in Good Will Hunting, I had to see about a girl. And where did I wind up? Back in Ithaca, New York. So I get there. I love the town. I loved it from college, but I'm there with no job, no plan. It's extremely tough. I tried a couple things to fit in that red tape sort of academic world, and it wasn't for me. So when I'm at about the lowest point in my life, I hear the State Theater's in trouble. The executive director's about to leave, the shows aren't selling, a tremendous amount of debt for Historic Ithaca to save the building. I figure, hey, let me talk to the CEO of Historic Ithaca and see what I can do. I left that meeting as the executive director of the State Theater of Ithaca. And little did I know what the hell I just got myself into. I had contacts, right, so I could book shows that were making sense. But I could see instantly that Historic Ithaca's model was in trouble. They were trying to be a presenting house, meaning they were taking all the risk on the shows themselves, and they had no financial capital to do that. They were making the wrong show choices. They were losing massive amounts of money on every show. Even though I was booking shows that were making sense for them, they were never going to overcome the debt that came before. And what really turned the corner for me is that I came up with a proposal that I thought would make sense, a new model to run under, and no one wanted to hear it. They were so consumed by that debt, they didn't want to listen. The board of directors said, it's going to be you versus us. The last straw was realizing that they were using a loophole that was allowing them to use ticket dollars for upcoming shows to keep their operations running. It was legal, but it certainly put my reputation and my credibility with agents at stake. So I was left with no choice, and in 2008, Dan Small's Presents was born. I left, I figured I'd rent the place, and I knew they weren't going to make it, so at the same time, I got to start making friends with people. Business people, bankers, things like that. You know, the t-shirt and jeans guys meeting with the suits, right? Figure it's the right way to go. A couple of them take my side in this battle, and their stature in the community convinced Historic Ithaca to sell the theater to us. So what did we do to save the building? We created a new not-for-profit called State Theater of Ithaca, Inc. We secured government funding in the form of a nearly zero-interest loan. We paid off almost every debt and gave the theater a very solid footing from which to grow. I booked shows that people wanted to see. That was the first step. They were trying before to jam culture down people's throat. They were the cultural hand of God. You will like Broadway. And Ithaca said, no, we won't. We'll go somewhere else. We gave the people what they want. Listen, there's two kinds of promoters, right? The ones that book from the heart. They're going to book only what they like. And they're going to go out of business really quick because what I like isn't what you like or what you like or what you like. Then there's the ones that book from their pocket. And they give guys like me a bad name. The greased back hair, hey, whatever, we're going to make all the money. I worked for some of these guys. I don't want to do it ever again. The beauty of Ithaca is that I could book closer to my heart than my pocketbook and still make a living. So I talk about my new model for the state. It's unique, but it works. Dan Small's Presents is the exclusive talent buyer for the building. We control the calendar, and we guarantee them X number of rental shows a year. In addition, though, we book 8 to 12 shows a year that the theater is allowed to present themselves. Very low budget, very low cost. It allows them to go out and find community sponsors to offset some of the costs. We oversee their marketing efforts, and we give them very varied programming. This combination of good booking, hiring an executive director eventually to focus only on building projects and fundraising, having a marketing director, and increasing the number of shows that DSP puts on, has finally allowed this theater to stand on its own, and it's been great. There was so much hard work, and there were sleepless nights, you know. There's always been risk and reward. For me, it all came together one night when Lyle Lovett came to play. And he's on stage with John Hyatt, and they're doing their acoustic thing, and Lyle likes to talk. And after a song, he stands up and says, you know, theaters like this are becoming 7-Elevens and parking lots. And you guys should be thanking the people who saved this one. And there I was at the back of the hall, you know, solitary tears streaming down my cheek, just like this guy. People appreciated this sense of community they felt in this building. And we were responsible for making that happen, and it was just an amazing feeling. So why did it grow? Why do acts continue to play Ithaca? Because we go above and beyond for the acts first and then the patrons, right? Everybody knows a band is a rider. You probably all heard this story. Van Halen, no brown M&Ms, whatever. The rider is what they need to get through their day. Think about it though. These guys live on a bus, hurtling through the air in a plane. They get on a bus, then they're driving while they sleep at night. They show up, this dingy backstage is their home. They need some stuff to feel comfortable, right? Why do they ask for no brown M&Ms? Because they want to make sure you read it and do this for them. But I don't stop there. I never did. Say the Indigo Girls were playing right here on the stage tonight. A month ago, I'd have called their manager and said, hey, what are they into reading these days? And I'd stop at a bookshop and get them something that might be a little more. Or I'd figure out what someone's favorite beer is and have it shipped from across the globe to make sure it's there for them. Isn't this anybody's favorite beer? Around here it might be. And of course, I'm from Ithaca, so I'd put together a little Ithaca care package and probably one of those silly green t-shirts and bumper stickers just so they knew where it came from. This mentality of going beyond is something we've applied to every project we've ever done. A good case in point is Brewery Ommegang, nearby in Cooperstown. When I first met their president, he told me they make small, perfect amounts of beer. And it's kind of true, but it's also my mentality for shows. We like to present small but perfectly intimate experiences at whatever capacity makes sense for the act. So he and I were a harmonious fit. We built a venue that we thought by the end of year 6, 7, acts would be asking us to play. By the end of the 3rd year, that started to happen because we made the experience spectacular for everybody, the artist and the fan. For the artists, we gave them amazing food, a casual family vibe at the venue, tons of beer and swag for the road, and a great audience that would just enjoy under the stars at night. For the fans, we tried to keep them very comfortable. We offered them great food and beverages at reasonable prices. I mean, $5 for an Ommegang beer, not a $14 Live Nation pint. I mean, come on, crazy. They'd ask questions, we'd answer them. Sure, bring your blankets and lawn chairs. Little kids are free, of course. Even mine, who thinks he runs the place, for sure. Watch the fireworks after the show. Stay the night in camp. Have a shower and some eggs in the morning. Treat your fans well, and your artists are going to realize that. We even went beyond this. We would invite band managers to come from acts who aren't even playing. Agents kind of hate that. You know, they like that little line between promoter and, you know, they can control things. But I said, screw it. If I'm going to be partners with the people I work with, I'm going to invite them to come. Some of my best friends in the industry manage the acts I present. My friend Juan, for instance, manages Modest Mouse and Bright Eyes and Conor Oberst. We talk a lot. When his dad passed, I was one of the first calls he made. We make plans and then tell the agent what we're going to do. Boy, do they hate that. When he plays a new market or one where he's not comfortable with the promoter, nowadays he'll bring us along, and other managers are doing the same thing. It's how we've grown into markets like New Haven and other places, just through relationships. It's an honor to be thought of this way. It's this relationship we've built with Juan and his bands, and Ani Difranco at her club at Babeville in Buffalo, Daryl Hall at his place down in Pawling. Rules, protocol, sometimes you just got to say, and I'll borrow from Daryl here, I can't go for that. And you work harder to reach the people who, as Daryl would say, are out of touch, you know? That's how we're the straw that's stirring the drink. We don't play by the industry rules. We break the rules. I encourage you to break the rules. I encourage you to believe what you believe. Respect people and remember their names. It's simple. I know the caterer's name back there. I do that at my shows. I know the assistants who work for the agents I work with because you never know where the next person's going to wind up. I return every email, and even my partner thinks I'm crazy, but I do. Make a fair living, sure, but grow through more volume, not trying to squeeze more out of the act or the fan. Be their partner and watch what happens. Don't be afraid to believe in a small town or city. Really, it can happen anywhere. Anywhere people believe and other people support that belief. You have to create a microculture in your own market. I've been able to create one under the Live Nation umbrella. Realize that different people like things done differently. It's really hard to enjoy a folk act in a dingy rock club, right? But you can create a space that works inside another space. Rent some chairs, decorate it a little bit. It can work. Go the extra mile and give people what they don't even know they want yet. You have to be forward thinking. You have to push the envelope. In any industry, it's not just rock and roll, anywhere. The way other people are doing it doesn't have to be your way, because if someone's already doing it, you can't do the same thing and be better. You can only be the same. You have to be different, innovate, and then you can buck the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.